Hi, everyone. It's Walter Bowne. So, I'm going to talk about eight major things, literary devices, when we're talking about short fiction, or we're talking about fiction in general, or even nonfiction. These things are very, very important. And um, let's listen up and let me tell you why. Okay, first, let's talk about symbols. Everything in a story stands for something. Okay, unless an author built better than they knew, everything stands for something. Every letter in your name is a symbol. All right, so the clothes you wear, the socks you decide to wear, everything could be analyzed for its symbolic value. Right, the American Eagle for freedom, uh, the Crocs I wear for safety, that I can wash them and not get COVID. All right. So in the short stories, the chrysanthemums that grow huge, right? The scissors that she uses to cut them down, the dog, the dirty wagon, the hills, everything in that story. I mean, all of the symbols there are there to be analyzed um, in everyday use. Alice Walker, we have the furniture, the quilts, the butter urn. In Hills Like White Elephants, we have the suitcase, the train tracks, the Anis del Toro, the beads that could act as a kind of like a rosary. We're in a Catholic country, right? So pay attention to symbols. They are all over the place. You should be tripping over them. And then as you read them, like, okay, why is this here? Why is this here? Why is this here? We're reading great works of literature, and these are no accidents, all right? Number two is foreshadowing. Uh, so when the family drives by Tombsboro and sees five or six graves in A Good Man's Hard to Find, Flannery O'Connor here is using foreshadowing. Um, those five or six graves are going to be their graves, and Tombsboro is going to be their tomb, right? So authors use these as clues as to what will happen in the story. As you become a better reader, you will pick up on these clues. It's like writers are leaving crumbs, like little keys or little Easter eggs. Like if you play a video game and you didn't realize there was like some hidden little thing that you find, you get so excited. Foreshadowing is like this, all right? So pay attention to foreshadowing. Number three, of course, is conflict. All right. We have internal conflict and external conflict. So Sylvia in the lesson has a lot of internal conflict, okay, which she reveals. Why is she feeling this way? Why is she so upset? Um, and then she also has external conflict with her friends, but really Mrs. Moore, she has a big conflict with her, right? And comes right out. Well, what are you trying to show us, and why did you bring us here? Okay, we have internal conflict in Hills Like White Elephants, right? We have the girl who obviously wants to keep the baby. The man wants, so she's conflicted. We have human versus human conflict between the boy, the American guy, and the girl, right? In Rose for Emily, we don't really have so much internal conflict with Miss Emily because we really don't get inside of her mind as much. Um, but she is fighting with sanity, the town, history, the South, the Civil War. There's a lot of external conflicts there. All right. Of course, she has conflicts with Homer Baron and et cetera, et cetera. So we generally think of like human versus human, an individual versus society, an individual versus God, or some sort of supernatural thing, or individual versus machine, right? That kind of thing. The fourth thing you have to be concerned with is the plot. It's the structure of it's the skeleton of the story. Basically, it is a little deeper than that, but if you can think of like n- nonlinear and linear narratives, a linear narrative goes in chronological order. So the chrysanthemums is linear. Hills Like White Elephants is linear. Most of the stories we read or the shows that we watch are linear. All right. Schitt's Creek is linear. The Matrix, Pulp Fiction, they are non-linear. They jump around in time. So A Rose for Emily is non-linear, right? It doesn't go from A, B to C. It may start at the end and then goes back here, goes back there. the story we read, Nettle, in the New Yorker, that's definitely nonlinear, right? It's fragmentary. It goes back and forth, right? The fifth thing is, of course, characterization. An author is creating characters just like a god would create a person, right? Um, and an author does that through dialogue. You know, someone can, when they hear you speak, they kind of know what kind of character you are, your education level and your area of interest and things like that. The description, the imagery, how you have your hair cut, the type of clothing you wear, the speech, the interior monologue, the backstory, the vernacular, the everyday kind of speech that a character reveals. Okay, so think about how effective vernacular is in the lesson, right? Or how the wife in Hell Heaven is characterized as being lonely, um, and needing a connection, uh, with someone, right? Um, and her conflict with her daughter and society and her, um, typical, Indian upbringing. Number six is setting. All right, setting is so important. So an author, decides where to place the story for strategic reasons. Your job as the reader, and as a critic, is to say, okay, why does this story happen where it does, and how does it influence the theme and denouement, the outcome or the resolution of the story. So where you are is largely who you are. So think of Elsa in All Alone on a Ranch in California. I mean, if she was in the city, that's a very different story. Sylvia, the little girl in New York City, if she was, not from, she's visiting Park Avenue. She is so far from Park Avenue, but it's definitely a New York story, right? F.E.O. Schwartz. The woman in the yellow wallpaper in a rural area of America. All right, so setting is so important. So please consider setting as a possible topic of exploration. Two more, theme, of course. Oftentimes there's more than one theme in a story, but oftentimes authors have like an intention. So your job is to think about the authorial intention. Why did the author write the story? What did they want to show about the human condition? And so consider theme, all right? And theme is oftentimes just don't write like the story is about love, all right? It's too general. What about love? Um, does Elsa love her husband? Yes, but is the type of love that she needs because it seems so passionless and the marriage seems sexless. Um, so you need to go more than this story is about force or this story is about racism. No, that's the topic. You need to go into deeper into that to have a good thesis. And also, number eight, the last one I'll talk about is tone and mood. All right, a great author controls all elements to create an overall feeling in the story, ambiance, atmosphere. Like in Tony K. Bombero's The Lesson, it's funny but serious. In A Rose for Emily, we see nostalgia, sadness, but also this feeling of respect. And in Clean, Well Lighted Place, it feels very emotionally detached. All right, the author, Hemingway, is telling the story, in Like Hills Like White Elephants, but he's not giving too much feeling as to how he feels about this. So there's a detachment to it, right? Which could mean, in its existential idea that God, may not even be there, and it's just observing what's happening without really making a comment. All right, so hopefully these eight things have helped you to think about these stories in various aspects. I'll be going over more later, but I think eight is good to start with.